Hello and welcome to How to Invest. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the latest HIMS and HERS earning call, Q3 of 2025. So let's dive right in. I've just highlighted a few things in the shareholders letter. First off, we got 49% year-over-year revenue growth, which is an incredible revenue growth rate. We're going to talk about revenue a bit more later once we have a bit more context of what's happening in the business. But we just wanted to start there, point that out. Operating cash flow is up 74% year over year, and that is a greater increase than the revenue increase, showing that they are gaining operating leverage, which means for each new dollar of revenue, less of it has to go to operating expenses, to fixed cost, and so on. So it's producing more and more operating cash flow per net new dollar of revenue. So we love to see that. 21% increase in subscribers and a 19% increase in monthly online revenue per average subscriber. This is not actually an all-time high for the monthly revenue per subscriber, but we'll see it in some of the charts later. It is a re-jumping on the trend line upward. Again, last quarter they had to stop selling their generic GLP-1s, and then they had a partnership with Novo or Lilly, I can't remember which one, and then that partnership ended in the middle of quarter, and that caused a bunch of lost revenue, them not being able to sell those GLPs to customers. It was just a little bit of a headache. So that was a bit of a drag on the last quarter, but this quarter is a thesis reaffirming quarter as they are getting back on track. And there's some exciting news about GLP-1s too that we'll also cover. So let's go on to my next highlight that I have here. So I think this is a really, really important thing, which is subscribers using a personalized treatment plan increased 50% year over year. So here is the share of total subscribers utilizing a personalized treatment plan. Sorry, my head's probably in the way a little bit here, so try to move it over so it's a little less. Okay, hopefully you can see it well now. So yes, this has been increasing. I wrote out a bit of a flywheel for us to look at so we can really visualize why these personalized treatments are so important. This is the flywheel visualization that I made to help us really understand why more people using personalized treatment is so important. So we have a new customer or an existing customer, either one, and they start using a personalized treatment. Now, this personalized treatment starts to create data on how that treatment does, how effective it is for that specific person. Maybe we're using computer vision on acne, and so we can see certain types of acne are responding better or worse to certain types of medication using AI learning. And what that does is it's creating more data, and that data allows us to produce better personalization and better results for the patients or customers who are using this personalized treatment. Now, this creates raging fans because people who have super effective treatments are obviously very, very happy. So they're going to go tell their friends. They're going to keep paying HIMS for that personalized treatment. They might potentially buy another treatment from HIMS because they know that the treatments are very, very effective for the things that they're purchasing them for. They write reviews online, so there's more social proof that this brand is effective and actually helps people. And so these reviews, these word of mouth, feeds back into new customers, etc. And either it increases their spend, so maybe instead of new customer here, it is increasing customer spend. But it is a flywheel, right? So either it's a new customer, an existing customer, or a customer spending more on another personalized treatment, which creates more data on that treatment, which creates better personalization and better results, which makes the customer incredibly happy. And then it starts to cycle over again. So this is the flywheel that HIMS has created, and the offshoot of that is obviously profit. That produces more revenue, produces more gross profit, more cash flow, and all those types of things. So now that we understand the flywheel and why this is so important, this metric makes so much more sense, and we can really understand why 50% year over year increase in personalized treatment is so incredible. All right, let's move on to my next highlighted. There's a bunch of great stuff in here, guys. If you are an investor, I highly encourage you to go read the shareholder letter yourself and to go watch the earnings call yourself. If you are an investor, these are very, very important tasks for you to do. So you truly understand what you are buying when you're investing in these companies. The next thing from the shareholder letter that I want to point out is that they recently reduced prices across their personalized GLP-1s by 20%. Now, this is, as we'll see later in the shareholder letter, because of verticalization. They are not only the ones selling it on the online storefront, but they're also the ones compounding it themselves. So this verticalization allows them to have greater efficiency and pricing power when creating these compounded, and so they're actually able to pass those savings onto the customer, which is often called among investors the Costco algorithm. And this is such a great way to do it, right? So you decrease the price of your good, you reduce the cost of that good, and now because demand is elastic and responds to price decreases, you've actually increased the demand for your product significantly, and so the absolute dollars of revenue you're making is actually greater than when you sold the product at a higher price, because you're selling it to so many more people. And again, this is so important because Hims and Hers at its heart is a disruption play, a disruption of traditional health. If they can make subscription and pay out of pocket Medicare, like medical care, cheaper than going through the traditional health system and your insurance, that's going to be incredible for the consumers. This is going to bring so much value to the world. And this is the evidence of them actually being able to do that by verticalizing it, not having to deal with insurance, and going direct to consumer. So this is the beginning. I expect many more price reductions across many of their products throughout the future as they continue to verticalize and as they continue to scale their operations, get better economies of scale. They're just going to be able to provide so much more value to the customers. They're really going to disrupt traditional health. And this little indicator, well, maybe it's like, oh wow, you would never have thought that. That's what this means. This is what this is showing, that they're going to be able to completely disrupt traditional healthcare by making literally pay out of pocket cheaper than going through your insurance plan. Now let's talk about their new testosterone and menopause offering. I love to see them continuing to launch more and more verticals. Now, I think these verticals are huge in of themselves, but what's more important is just the synergies between the verticals. As they continue to launch more and more verticals, they continue to become the one-stop shop for everything medical that you need. And that again is just continuing to make them more and more disruptive. Now, if you could only get a few things, well, of course you still have to exist in the traditional healthcare system to get everything that you need. But as they offer more and more things through their platform, well, maybe I don't actually need to go to the traditional health. Maybe I don't need insurance because, as we'll see later, I can almost get all of my healthcare needs through this one platform, and it's cheaper for me. So, I love to see this. I think this opens up a huge new addressable market. It opens up tons of cross-selling, which can reduce the cost of acquisition of customers. It can increase the average subscriber price per month of subscribers, right? So they'll spend more because now they have a new vertical. So now I'm buying this product. Oh, I also need this product, so I'm going to buy that as well. So the average, price per month that a customer spends at HIMS increases. So we love to see this. It opens up a ton of new synergies. And I think they're just going to keep deploying new vertical. And that just it kind of shows the operation that they have at HIMS is just so gung-ho. They're going for growth. They're going for those new verticals. And they're able to deploy them successfully, which is also obviously very, very important. This next thing is really bringing that point home of this might actually just replace your primary care physician. And that is them launching their comprehensive lab testing capabilities in the near future. Why do you go to the doctor? Maybe there's a specific reason, but most of the time you're just going for your annual checkup to make sure that there's nothing wrong that you don't even know about. So if they're able to launch and sell this comprehensive lab testing for less than what your insurance copay is, and you can know for sure because they've lab tested you, you've taken these tests, that you have no health issues. What more do you actually need from the medical care system? That is literally everything you need. And then perhaps once you have a problem, you can already get it solved at HIMS and HERS. I think that the way that insurance is really going to work is going to change because of companies like HIMS and HERS. Instead of just having a medical insurance plan where it covers everything, including your basic checkups, basic medication, it's really just going to become like a disaster insurance plan where it's like if you have a major, like a broken bone, you need some kind of super crazy surgery on your heart or something, it'll be insurance for just that, which will make it much, much cheaper because obviously those types of things happen much less often. And it won't just be like for regular checkups. And you'll just pay a normal subscription to HIMS and HERS. Every year they'll send you a lab testing kit and you'll do the whole thing yourself at your home. You won't have to drive to a doctor's office. It will be so much cheaper because HIMS and HERS isn't paying for a massive building and all these primary care physicians to do the test on you. You just do it yourself. Get sent to a lab. They're processing, hundreds of thousands of these lab tests, and you just get sent your results and you're all good for that year. I mean, this is so disruptive. So I love to see them continuing to push out new products like this. And honestly, me personally hearing this, I'm like, maybe I don't renew my health insurance next year. I don't have any major issues. Basically, the only reason I have health insurance is because I want to make sure, I get my annual check and that I'm all good. And, next year, my insurance is going up very, very significantly, so almost $200 a month. And I'm sure that's cheap. Some of you guys are like, what, $200? Maybe some of you guys are cheaper. I don't really know. My parents pay a ton for medical. They're a bit older, of course. But for young people, a subscription like this, I pay $200 a month. That's going to be $2,400 a year. So if this is cheaper than $2,000, it makes sense for me as a 24-year-old to just buy this test once a year, make sure I'm all good, and I don't need to see a doctor beyond that. So I think this will serve so many people so well. I think this actually opens up a ton of, people who will want to purchase this. And then if I'm already purchasing this, maybe I have a little bit of, hair loss, I'll purchase a hair loss. So the cross-selling is just incredible. Plus all the goodwill that you generate, it's amazing. So another thing here is they're going to launch their longevity specialty. And this, I cannot stress, is what I am most excited for. So they're planning to launch this in 2026. And this plays into replacing your PCP, your primary care physician. This plays into all of the cross-selling synergies of the, personalized treatment flywheel. If you're paying a company and they're literally keeping you alive for longer, the amount of goodwill that's going to generate in people's heads towards this company, they're just going to absolutely love this company. Not to mention the total addressable market that this opens up. This goes from, people who actually already have an issue to literally every human being on planet Earth can become your customer because everybody wants to live longer. Everybody wants to live healthier. Even if you're a healthy person, you can be healthier. You can, optimize your health more. You can get better sleep. You can, perform athletics more at a higher level, get better gains in the gym. This is the kind of stuff that they will be able to start selling with this new longevity specialty, not dying as a service. And, if you do get sick, once you're already paying this company to increase your well-being in life, of course you're going to go to them for when you have an ailment and they already have a personalized treatment. They know, what, kind of biomarkers you have because you did the lab test, and they can personalize a treatment that is the most effective for you. This is going to be a one-stop shop. And again, all of these kind of play into each other. And just again, it's going to be so disruptive. I know I've said that a million times now, but this is where I see this company going. Now, this is the super exciting news I talked about earlier in regards to GLP-1s. Now, there's just a little snippet here. They said, we are in active discussions with Novo Nordisk to make Wegovy injections and Novo's oral Wegovy available through the HIMS and HERS platform. This would be huge, and this would potentially put them back on the accelerated GLP-1 revenue growth trajectory. Now, we'll look at them and compare kind of the pre-GLP-1 revenue trajectory to the post-GLP-1 revenue trajectory, but this makes that a possibility again, which is super, super excited. Obviously, it's not guaranteed, but we would love to see them make that partnership, get brand named GLP-1s back on their platform and selling it to him again. Just as many verticals as they can offer, it's just better for the whole platform because of all of the cross-selling synergy possibilities. So we'd love to see them get this. So I'm very excited about the potential of a deal coming together and getting Wegovy listed on the Hims and Her platform again. I can't remember if it was Eli Lilly's GLP-1 or Novo Nordisk's before, but whatever company's GLP-1s it is, having a GLP-1 on your website is super, super helpful for revenue growth, for cross-selling synergies, and all that kind of stuff. So this was the verticalization I was talking about earlier. So they're continuing to invest in that. They're trying to expand their footprint from 700,000 square feet with an additional 350,000 square feet of additional, compounding facility space. They also mentioned that they're going to be bringing on R&D of peptides into these facilities. So research and development of peptides. I think this is super, super excited. Peptides is a massive new frontier in medicine that I think is going to be super, super revolutionary for people's health and longevity treatments. So I would love to hear the fact that they're investing in facilities to do research and development and further compounding. The more they verticalize, the more they do their own compounding versus outsourcing the compounding, the better, kind of margin profiles they get, the better pricing they can offer to customers. Thus, they can lower those prices and they can, address more and more customers as that price decreases, and it opens up more and more demand for their products. So this kind of investment is super, super important for their continued growth, for their continued disruption. I kind of thought this was a little bit funny. This is just a little bit of a snippet about them saying their pharmaceutical ingredients and compounded treatments are sourced from FDA-registered facilities. If you remember, there was some news over the past 3 months, I don't remember exactly when they kind of got accused of getting their ingredients from audited facilities that were not, kind of FDA registered facilities. So I think it was kind of funny that they threw this in here, like we are using FDA registered facilities. This is very, very important. This is medicine. People are ingesting this. I mean, they're trying to get treatment for sicknesses. So you want to make sure that these are FDA registered facilities. They're not putting anything gross, any kind of harmful ingredients in there. So obviously this is important, but it was really, kind of a nothing burger being accused of that. So I think this is just kind of put in here to reassure people, hey, we use FDA registered facilities. There's nothing to worry about here. I'm just going to read this part of the shareholder letter verbatim because I think it really kind of hones in their kind of aim to just replace your primary care physician. So historically, our subscribers have come to us seeking care for conditions they have already suffering from and relied on our provider network to help them find solutions. With our upcoming launch of comprehensive lab testing and diagnostics, we expect to do even more. We envision these capabilities will eventually empower consumers to proactively identify health concerns that may not yet show obvious signs, such as vitamin deficiencies, unoptimized hormonal levels, and genetic risk markers, while also identifying early indicators of more serious health conditions like cancer and cardiovascular disease. They even partnered and invested in Grail, which is a pre-cancer diagnostic testing company. So they are really, really serious about this. But I think how does this not replace your doctor visits? That's everything you would ever want tested and detected, going into your regular doctor's visit. So I love to see them do this. And then obviously this leads into longevity, optimizing hormonal levels, which increases your sleep, just, your whole lifespan and your quality of life. So these are amazing. Also just cross-selling gummies and stuff. So, you pay for, the diagnostic tests and stuff. And then, it recommends you gummies because you have a deficiency and now you have a new subscription for gummies. So just really good cross-selling synergies again. So I thought this was really interesting when they talked about their acquisition of Zava Global, which is their European M&A strategy for expanding into Europe. They said that this increased their total addressable market by 160 million adults, and they talked about UK, Germany, France, and Ireland. The thing that I thought was interesting about the number of adults that they said was that's basically all the adults in all of those countries. So they're not just viewing their addressable market as, the sick people in those countries. I think they're literally counting every single adult in every single one of these countries as their potential potential customer now that they have the longevity vertical in mind, because really everybody wants to live longer, which makes everyone their potential customer. They're also expanding to Canada as I think it was Novo Nordisk or Eli Lilly. I can't remember which one it was. They accidentally let their patent lapse on GLP-1s because they did not pay like a $25 fee or something crazy like that. So I thought this was, again, pretty funny that they're expanding into Canada starting 2026, selling generic GLP-1s, which is actually a huge market for them. There is a lot of people who, can obviously benefit from a product like GLP-1s in Canada. And now that the generic the patent has lapsed, they can go and sell generic and compounded all they want. Obviously, I think compounded is better, right? We love those personalized treatment, and the people love the personalized treatment, right? Because it's better for them. But yeah, I just want to point that out as well. So lots and lots of growth levers for them in the future. Here's the last thing I'll touch on in the shareholder letter, and then we'll just go over the, kind of modeling in our spreadsheet real quickly. So this is the subscriber and revenue growth. So again, we already saw that, but I want to just point out kind of the two trajectories that we're on. So this first ramp here, which was kind of going exponentially this direction, I kind of hopefully you can see that movement with my mouse I made there. That was the GLP-1 trajectory. Obviously, that got a ton of hype. It was very, very exciting. It was really massive increases in the revenue growth. Now, we could get back on that trajectory with these kind of Novo Nordisk expansion to Canada. Those type of things could put us back on the GLP-1. Any of these new verticals could put us on a new trajectory, kind of like how GLP-1 did. The testosterone, menopause, longevity, any of these things could reaccelerate revenue, which I think makes this company so exciting. There's all of these X factors here. But even if one of them doesn't explode like we saw with GLP-1s again, this is the more kind of trajectory we were on pre-GLP-1s, and we can see that that's continuing through here this quarter. So obviously we had a decline sequentially from Q1 to Q2, but we have now a sequential increase and the highest revenue quarter ever in Q3. And this you can kind of see the trend coming through this kind of odd Q1 quarter where GLP-1s just really, really blew up revenue. So I think this is really promising that this company is on a really, really stable trajectory. They lost GLP-1s, they went right back down to that stable revenue growth trajectory. So I think that's really, really promising. Of course, it would be really exciting if they have some kind of crazy revenue acceleration again in the future, which is totally possible through any one of these verticals or the reintroduction of GLP-1s on the website. So, even if none of that happens, I think the trajectory of HIMS and HERS is very, very solid. And we're going to just look at the base case really quick to kind of see how that pins out in the number and in the returns. So for HIMS, we've actually revised this down from, I think it was almost at 50% before. So now we're just expecting 30% over the next year, 25% through years 2 through 5, and then kind of a decreasing revenue growth through year 10, and then decreasing still all the way down to 10% through year 20. Now, again, this is assuming no reacceleration from any of these X factors. So we think this is very, very conservative. And then we can look at the margin profile, get to 9%, which would be increased. They decreased from 9 to 6% net margins this quarter, but in 1 year, we could easily see it at 9%, 15% in 5 years, 21% in 10 years, and 25% in 20 years. And we think this is very possible, especially with their super, super healthy gross margin of 75%. And these have pretty conservative, PEs, PE of 50 in 1 year, 40 in 5, and kind of compressing down to 25 PE in 20 years. So let's look at the charts and see what that looks like for HIMS. So HIMS is this column here. This is the S&P expected return, and then this is what a 30% compounding growth rate looks like. So we've added that to the chart, so we kind of have a benchmark. That is kind of our target, is 30% returns a year. We're currently absolutely obliterating that, but obviously this is a really good year as well. So you have to kind of average it out through the good years and the bad years. So we expect, so this again, and this reflects what we think the inherent value of this company is, not what the price says the company is, right? So there's a dislocation between inherent value and price. Price fluctuates a ton, inherent value grows very steadily because that's based on the fundamentals of the core business. So based on our base case, we say the fundamentals of the business should see it increase in value by about 20% from where the current price says it is. And over the long run, price does typically follow inherent value. Now, over any year or a couple of years, it can be very, very dislocated from the inherent value. So keep that in mind. These are also just directional. They're not descriptive. This is not exactly what's going to happen. We're obviously going to be wrong, but we just hope to be directionally correct. So we expect a 3.5x in the stock price to reflect the inherent value in 5 years, a 9.5x in 10 years, and then a 34x in 20 years. So very, very healthy return. Not quite a 20% CAGR from year 10 to year 20, but obviously we have very conservative numbers for there, decreasing to like pretty much 10% from year 10 to year 20. It could be much higher than that in reality. So again, very conservative estimates, but that is an incredible return that is beating the S&P 500 very significantly, which we expect at compounding at 10% annually will be a 6.7x. So, multiple times greater than the S&P 500's return. So that's kind of what our modeling shows for HIMS right now. I think it is at a pretty dang good price. And obviously with those X factors, there's a little bit of excitement there too of, any quarter with any launch of new vertical, there could be a re-acceleration in the revenue growth. But very conservative. We think they're going to be a really consistent grower and just do really well. Andrew Durham is an excellent CEO. And we love to see him continuing to invest very heavily in the business, in those compounding facilities, in R&D, in launching new verticals. So we think HIMS is an excellent company. We're very excited about these earnings. They're very, very solid results. And overall, it was just a very thesis affirming quarter. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to like. If you want to get more videos like this in the future, we're going to continue to cover these companies. Make sure to subscribe to see next quarter or developing news about these companies as we upload them. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you had a wonderful time and I hope you have a wonderful day.